Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Nick, and in today's video I want to talk about heating for your crested gecko and what's the best way to provide heat for your crested gecko. Let's get right into it. Okay guys, so when we talk about external heating, there's usually two types of external heating, right? You have a ceramic heat emitter, and you have an under tank heater, which is those fancy heat mats you see at pet stores. And the ceramic heat emitters are used primarily, they look like, I'll put a picture of them up right now, actually both of the two options I'm talking about. These are really the only two I want to talk about today. I don't think that you should provide like a 25 watt bulb or anything like that, only because the ceramic heat emitter, the benefit to it is it doesn't provide light, which is very important when it comes to your heating element, because likely if you need heat, you're going to need it during the night, which is when they're most active. And if you just have a heat bulb, which has light off of it, then it's really not going to be as beneficial to your gecko, because all you're going to do is turn off the heat and the temperature is going to drop, right? Well, you turn off the light, and then it's most warm whenever they really don't need it. So just kind of something to think about. If you're using a heat light, I would highly recommend ditching that and getting a ceramic heat emitter. So let's talk about kind of the two. Ceramic heat emitters are primarily used for projecting heat down without using any light. Okay, that's just kind of the basic, that is what it is. Under tank heaters, so heat mats, UTHs, those are primarily used for belly heat, right? So ceramic heat emitters help provide overall ambient heat. Your under tank heaters primarily are going to provide a hot spot, and it's going to provide belly heat. So think about that for a second. Ceramic provides ambient, under tank is going to provide a hot spot, right? So that's important to remember when you're thinking about what these guys need. So what these guys really need and what crested geckos really need is ambient temperatures. So the issue, if you're going to pick between the two, I highly recommend doing ceramic heat emitter. Under tank heaters are not for crested geckos, and they really shouldn't be used for crested geckos. Now, the biggest reason they shouldn't be used for crested geckos is because if you take that tank, the tank mat heater thing, you stick it to the side of the tank, right? Which we're gonna have to, because if you put it underneath, all you're gonna do is dry out your substrate, and it's really just, and it's not gonna provide enough ambient, because that thing cannot get hot enough for these guys. And so let's say you stick it to the side, what's gonna happen is you're gonna have one hot spot on that side of the glass, and in order to make the other side of the enclosure the same temperature, this side is gonna have to be so hot that it's really probably not safe for your gecko to walk on. And your gecko's really only gonna be limited to that side of the tank, because you're gonna set your thermostat to about 78 degrees, right? Or 77 degrees, somewhere in there. These guys aren't just good, you know, don't just make them limited to one spot. Give them the whole area to roam. And that's why a ceramic heat emitter, if I put the bulb on top of the tank, then I'm able to provide a gradient that will travel the whole tank, because I'll put my thermostat toward the top, and then the heat will kind of spread itself throughout the tank, and then the hot air will rise, and you have a nice, you have a nice little basking spot, and then it gets cooler toward the bottom, which is the way it should be, instead of just having one hot spot on the left side of the tank randomly. So just make sure that if you're gonna provide external heat, really make sure you use a ceramic heat emitter. I'm just really not a big fan of the under tank heaters, because it's not for these guys. It's more gonna be used for ball pythons and leopard geckos, but there's even some, you know, some people say that information is outdated as well, but I can tell you that it's definitely used for ball pythons. So, and to always make sure if you're using the ceramic heat emitter, make sure you're using it connected to a thermostat. You have to have a thermostat. Without a thermostat, this stuff can get way too hot, and when it gets way too hot, it's gonna end up killing your gecko. So anything above, I personally don't feel comfortable with my geckos above 80, like at all. I know you can go up to about 82, 83 is kind of what I would maximum do in a tank. Yeah, in the wild, obviously in New Caledonia it gets warmer than 83 degrees in New Caledonia, but it's also important to remember that they're kind of in the shade and they're under trees, and it's much cooler down there. There's also, you know, it's an island, so there's gonna be breeze on an island, and your tank just can't replicate that. So that's why I would fall toward a little less heat overall, just because I prefer mine to be about like 75 to 77 is typically good, and my crested geckos digest just fine and they eat just fine, and so on and so forth. Probably the best way that you can keep your crested geckos is just using a space heater in a dedicated crested gecko room, and it's gonna have the best overall heat. And that's what I do. So ideal world, you keep your crested gecko room at 74, 75 degrees, somewhere in that range, and you're good to go. But more than likely, I would highly recommend that, but if you don't have enough to have a gecko room, or you don't really want a gecko room and you only want a couple, ceramic heat emitter is definitely going to be your best option, and it's kind of going to be the best thing to do. And as you can see here, we have a wild Megan in the background putting up her wine bottles because she drinks way too much wine. Okay, moving on to a different subject. That, honestly guys, that's kind of the video. Ceramic heat emitter provides the best overall ambient temperature, so it's the best thing for them. Under tank heaters, those are used for belly heat, right? And these guys don't need belly heat. They don't even know how to control belly heat, so it's kind of a risky game as is there. So don't use under tank heaters, don't put them on the side, use a ceramic heat emitter, and you're gonna like your life a hell of a lot better, trust me. So that's the video, guys. I hope you liked it. If you did, leave it a big thumbs up, go ahead, subscribe. We're gonna keep giveaways going and going and going and going until this thing dies off, or until I die off, I guess. So until next time, guys, stay safe and stay positive.